So I've almost finished the Via de la Plata. I've got a day to go, and I thought it would be a good opportunity to reflect on it. What's good, what's bad, what I thought of it, coming right up. I'm one day away from finishing the Via de la Plata. I'm about 5 kilometers south of La Bagneta, and then from there I've got one more day to Astorga tomorrow, which is about 25 k's. And I thought this would be a good opportunity. I've shared a few thoughts about the VdlP along the way. Probably the last 3 weeks I've been a little bit quiet on the topic. I wanted to settle into it and really try to experience it as deep as possible, if you like, before sort of sharing any final thoughts. But I've got a day to go, so let me share some thoughts. Now, as always on these videos, this is just my personal opinion. This is a guy who in a couple of weeks is 66, not particularly fit. My only experience of Camino so far has been on the Camino Frances 3 times, and so please take it all in that context. But so what have been the highs and lows of the Via de la Plata? Generally, I have loved it. It is very different. So maybe if we sort of go through a few different elements. For the physical element, it's a lot tougher than the Camino Frances. The main reason being that the distances can be longer. I've managed mainly to keep my distances to 20-25 k's, but because of the spacing of the towns and villages, sometimes that's a little bit tricky. So you can be left with a 30k day and then even a 10k day, so that you don't muck up the following days. On the physical aspect as well, this is going to sound silly, but someone of my age and fitness, walking on the Camino Frances is really nice because you have cafes to stop at and all that kind of stuff. You've got nothing like that. I actually stopped for second breakfast this morning. I think it's the first time I've done it in 32, 33 days of walking. First opportunity I've had. And it's strange to say, but I find I'm on my feet all day. There's very little chance to rest. On some sections, you can find some rocks to sit on. You find some of the Camino markers to sit on. But, I've got arthritic knees and all the rest of it, and getting up and down off the ground is kind of not worth the effort for me. So I find I don't rest as much, and I suppose that puts, an extra toll on your body, because you kind of just keep walking for 5, 6, 7 hours, and then you rest at the end of the day. So physically, I think I found it a lot tougher. The landscape has been fantastic. I've loved it. It's exactly what I hoped for. If you've walked the Camino Frances, some people when they talk about the Meseta, it's kind of a love-hate relationship. People avoid it. A lot of the VdlP, I'd say 60-70%, is almost Meseta type landscapes. Very open. Here there's a few trees about. It's an agricultural area, but some of it is hardly a tree in sight. Just huge fields being cultivated and so on. But there are elements, you get days where you're walking through woods and things like that. So it's nicely broken up, and walking through little farmyards and all kinds of things. So the scenery, personally, I loved. The isolation, yep, kind of what I expected. The first week or so, I was totally alone, didn't see another pilgrim. And then I kind of worked it out by accident. Because of the heat, I decided that I would start pre-dawn, so that I could finish my walking before the heat of the day. And then I started finding other pilgrims. They were all sort of starting early. So probably from about, I don't know, days 7, 8, 9, 10, I not walking with people, but I was seeing the same people all the time, in the evenings and things like that, and starting to make friends with people. I walked with one lovely couple for, I don't know, 7, 10 days off and on. We wouldn't necessarily, walk together. I don't like to do that, but we'd be kind of within sight of each other, and have breaks together and meet up for meals at the end and things like that. The last 2 weeks probably, I've been walking with a couple of great American guys. Same sort of thing. We don't walk together, but I can't even see them. They're 2 kilometers ahead now. But I said, when we get to La Bagneta, I'll send you a WhatsApp text, and if you want to catch up for lunch, let's do that. So it's that kind of stuff. But I love the solitude, you know, just being able to think and walk on your own and, you know, have your own Camino kind of thing. And to a degree, walking loosely with other people has impacted that a little bit, because I feel inclined to, you know, keep up at times and things like that. I have to resist not doing that. But, you know, if you love solitude, you will absolutely love the VdlP. Some of the challenges, which detract slightly for me from the experience, I would probably put down as logistics. So whereas on a Camino like the Francis, you basically just get up and walk, and you don't have to worry too much about where you're going or what you're going to eat and stuff like that. I mean, funnily enough, when I join Astorga, I'm looking at the route from Astorga to Rabanal, and I'm thinking, holy crap, like I go through 2 villages where I can stop for a coffee, you know, will I bother stopping? You know, it's only 20 k's, I'll probably just go straight to Rabanal. So the whole logistics of it on the VdlP, it is on the one hand a little bit of a challenge, and it's also a distraction, I find, from, I suppose, the sort of easing back and relaxing into the Camino. You've kind of got this logistics challenge always. And so you find, you know, a lot of people in the evenings will be kind of planning the next day. Where will I walk to? Where might I stay? We've had a couple of days recently where, you know, there was a few more pilgrims on the path. And we're thinking, oh, you know, the next place has only got an albergue with 10 beds. And, you know, it almost became a bed race for a moment there. Because of the distances and so on, and there's very little option on where to stay. But, you know, in terms of logistics, it's more about not only how far shall I walk tomorrow, and there's very few options. You know, it's going to be specific villages because of the distances and so on. You know, it's going to be here or here. You know, it's going to be 10 k's or 30. It'll be 20 or 35. And then I've been using Gronza to look at the accommodation options. WhatsApp has been brilliant. So on Gronza, you've generally got a phone number. If it starts with a 6, that's a mobile number. You can WhatsApp them using that number, and generally places reply within half an hour. And so I've just been sending a pretty standard text, you know, hey, have you got a room? Have you got a bed? For those that will take bookings. So that's worked out really well. But the logistics element and the distraction is not just thinking, okay, well, that's where I'll probably walk to tomorrow, and here are my bed options. It's also, where will I get breakfast tomorrow? So, you know, we checked into an albergue in Alija del Infantado. It's probably not pronounced correctly. Lovely municipal albergue. The lady looking after it was great and sort of told us all about the town and where we could eat and stuff. And you find yourself going through the same questions every time you check in. Where can I get breakfast tomorrow? In that one, funnily enough, they provide a breakfast. They'll put out, you know, a very basic breakfast, but we found the gas station was open at 7, so we could get breakfast there. So, you know, where will I get breakfast? What bars are open in town? So I'm generally finishing, you know, about 1 o'clock. Have a menu del dia with a couple of other pilgrims, and that's kind of my eating for the day. I might have a beer and a bit of tapas in the evening or something, but, you know, those sort of questions come up. Where will I be able to get some lunch? Is there a tienda? Because I want to be able to stock up on my snacks. So in my bag right now, I have a pretty standard sort of set of backup food. I have a banana, I have a big bag of trail mix, and I have a couple of chocolate bars. Always I have a meal, you know, in my bag, because a couple of times I haven't been able to get breakfast. A couple of times, you know, you'll arrive and you know, if you haven't paid attention like I did a couple of times, I arrived in a little village on a Sunday. Tiendas closed, bars closed. In fact, there was a place a few days ago where the whole village was closed. So you need to be prepared for that. Water particularly. It's been quite hot, particularly in the first 2 weeks, so, you know, 2-3 weeks. So I was leaving early pre-dawn. It's starting to warm up now. Today it's going to hit 26, 27. It's 1 o'clock. I'll be finished in an hour, so I'll miss the heat of the day. In this part of the world, the heat of the day tends to be 3-4 p.m, which is quite good if you're walking, because you can get the bulk of your walking done early. Sorry if the camera is moving. I've got this kind of wrapped around a bit of a branch. Yeah, so water, I ran low on water once, and it's not fun. You know, you start to feel dehydrated, your joints start to hurt, that kind of stuff. I'm probably carrying a little bit more than I need to. Most days I'm walking 20-25 Ks, I'm carrying 2 litres. I have 1 litre of Aquarius, which is like Gatorade, you know, one of those sports drinks, and I have 1 litre of water, and I'm sort of alternating between the two to keep the electrolytes up and that kind of stuff. So yeah, the logistics is always in your head, and you don't really have to think about that on the Francis, so that's a little bit different. What else? Gear. The gear has worked out perfectly. My bag's probably a little bit heavier than I planned it to be, because I'm carrying 2 litres of water, I'm carrying a fair bit of food. I threw it on some scales in a pharmacia weeks ago, and I think it came in at over 9 kilos, 9.5 or something, but I'm kind of used to it now. Although if I do a little bit of shopping and throw another kilo in there, I notice it straight away. But the gear has worked really well. My standard Camino gear, if you have a look at that video, what's in my pack, that's what I'm using. The Hoka shoes have been good and bad. Again, have a look at the video on footwear. They have been really comfortable. I haven't been getting sweaty feet. I haven't had a single blister. They've been really, really good. The only downside is I've hit about 650 Ks, and these were new. I had a pair that I was practicing with, and then I've got a new pair for the Camino. The lining is starting to come apart, so I've got a bit of duct tape holding it together. Hopefully they'll hold together till the end, another 300 Ks or so. But no, gear's been great. The water system on the front has been working great. It doesn't look the best, but it works really well. So I think that's kind of a bit of a wrap up of the VdlP so far. You know, what's different about it? The Roman history, undoubtedly. You're going through, you know, ancient Roman towns like Merida, Zamora, Zafra. You know, there's Roman antiquity everywhere. You know, the Arco de Capara. That's amazing. To see that history, and the landscape's wonderful. It's quite different, you know, some of the sections where you're walking literally through fields and opening and closing gates. There's a few days like that where you're literally walking through farmyards and that kind of stuff, which is really cool. So what's the major difference, and how would I rate it? Okay, so let's think of this in terms of the 3 phases of the Camino. Lots of people talk about it. I've talked about it lots, you know, where generally in the first week or so, it's all about the physical stuff, and you're trying to get used to the walking, you know, and your body's getting used to it and carrying the pack and all the rest of it. And once you get used to that, then that's pretty cool. You then start to sort of hit that second phase, I find, the emotional bit, where, you know, kind of, why am I doing this? Do I want to be doing this? What am I hoping to find from doing this? You know, all that sort of headspace stuff. And then generally, for me at least, by the 3rd week, I'm sort of hitting that, I call it the sort of spiritual phase, where I'm just absolutely loving it. I'm totally connected with the journey, with the path, with nature, you know, and it just feels fantastic. So that's kind of the 3 phases of the Camino that I've generally found I go through and that I seek. What's different with the VdlP? So the physical bit probably took a bit longer because it's physically a little bit harder, and the logistics of it and so on. The emotional bit probably lasted a month, and I had a real struggle with it. And I'll tell you why. And I've had this discussion with a few people, because I never reached phase 3. And that was an emotional challenge for me. I felt that, is there something I'm missing from this Camino? Is there something I'm not doing right? Is there another way of engaging with this journey so that I can kind of get that phase 3, you know, that sort of spiritual element and the real joy of walking a Camino? And I never got it. And I've questioned myself over and over and over, why is that? And I can't put my finger on it. I think what it is that the VdlP, as far as I'm aware, is not a traditional pilgrimage route. It's an ancient Roman trade route, a Moorish trade route. It hasn't really been a pilgrimage route to Santiago in the same way that the Camino Frances has been. You tend not to get that underlying foundation of sort of pilgrimage that you get on the Camino Frances, for example. You know, the emblems, the wayside crosses, the open churches. You know, on the Camino Frances, you feel like you're on a pilgrimage. Here, I feel like I'm on a hike, and that's been the biggest difference for me. And look, I'm not trying to dictate, you know, how people should undertake a Camino, but by observation, I get the sense that most people who walk the VdlP are enjoying a long hike. They're not necessarily looking for a pilgrimage. Certainly a lot of the people I've spoken to. So for me, that's the big difference. It doesn't have that raw connection, you know, with the path where, you know, pilgrims have been walking it for 1,000 years and so on. And you almost, I say to people, you know, you almost feel the energy of the Camino on the Frances from millions of pilgrims over thousands of years. You know, that here, nada. It's a long hike, but an enjoyable hike. So by all means, you know, criticize that view down below. But for me, that's been my biggest struggle. This has been a great hike. Has it really been a Camino? There's been a key element missing. I mean, don't get me wrong, you know, the community of pilgrims has been great. I've really, you know, enjoyed staying in some albergues with fellow pilgrims. You know, I said before I undertook this journey, I will be trying out a few albergues. I've tried lots, all different types of albergues, and I'm going to be using more coming up. So all of those elements, if you love the hiking and meeting the other people, and, you know, the pilgrim meals, and I've had some wonderful community meals at albergues, all of that's there. Just that little icing on the cake for me is that sort of spiritual connection with the journey, which I haven't been able to find yet, and maybe it's me, I'm not sure. So it's going to be really interesting, because tomorrow I hit the Camino Frances. And I'm going to be on that for 3 or 4 days, and I'll be going up through Rabanal. I'm hoping to get a bed there at the Confraternity of St James Donativo, up over through Fontibadon to the Cruz de Ferro. You know, if I don't get a spiritual or emotional connection there, there's something really wrong. And then coming down through El Ceibo, there's a Donativo I want to try there, down to Ponferrada. So I'll get 3 or 4 days on the Camino Frances, and I'm curious just to see whether that little missing link comes back in again. Before then I head off on the Invierno. It would be very tempting to stay on the Frances, but I'm not going to, because I've done that 3 times. I want to have a new experience, and I really want to walk alone on the Invierno. I've kind of been alone on this for most of it, but connected with other people. I'm going to make sure on the Invierno I have no distractions at all, and almost walk the whole thing in solitude and stay in solitude. Well, that's the plan. Who knows? Day 2, I'll probably meet up with a few people, have a million del dia, and, you know, I'll be in another Camino family. But we'll see how we go. But hey, fantastic experience, absolutely. You know, people often ask me, why did you want to walk the VdlP? I wanted to walk something different than the Camino Frances. I love the Camino Frances, but I wanted to do something different, and it's getting a little bit crowded now. And I wanted that solitude. But, you know, the other thing I was looking for was just the challenge. When I get to Astorga, I will have walked 700 kilometers. I think to Santiago I'd be just under 1,000. Then I'm going to go out to Machira and Finisterre. I'll be up to 1,100. I think all up it's going to be between 1,100 and 1,200 kilometers. I just wanted to see if I could do it, and I've surprised myself. Let me touch the branch, touch wood. Hopefully I'll make it. Nothing is guaranteed, of course, but I have really enjoyed this journey. It's been so different, very different experience. Some of the people I have met have been amazing, and always on a Camino, you know, that's that's one of the key elements, isn't it? Who you meet. Met some amazing people from, you know, some Australians, French, Canadian, Americans, Dutch, loads of Dutch people on this one, Danish, lots of Germans, Spanish, of course. And that's, you know, one of the joys of walking any Camino, isn't it? So there we go. I've rattled on for over 20 minutes. If you have any questions about the Via del Plata, do comment down below. I might be a bit slow in responding because I've got another 3 weeks to go. I don't know. I've lost all track of time. But yeah, it's been a great experience. So when you watch this, if you've walked the VdlP, how did you find it? You know, was it everything that you hoped it would be? Some people have bailed on it. You know, a couple of people I know have bailed on it. It just wasn't what they wanted. Most people I've met are loving it, and it's because they love that sort of long distance hiking challenge and being able to unplug. So thanks for watching yet again, and I look forward to seeing your comments. Bye for now.